My name is Terri Trespicio, and I'm a speaker, writer, and brand advisor.
Oh my God, look at this party. Are you kidding me? About. Or when has someone said to you by way of advice, told you that when you weren't sure what you think you might want to do, you're not sure what you want to do next, you're not sure what you want to be when you're older. Did someone say to you, well, just follow your passion? This advice always bothered me. I mean, it really always kind of did, only because, yeah, like any person, I feel passionate about things, but I have never found it to be that helpful. And in fact, that does ended up forming the basis of that TED Talk, because when I had the opportunity to give a TED Talk, when I was kind of trying out for one, they said, the man in charge said, well, what do you think you want to do a TED Talk about? And I said, I have a few ideas. And one of them was that. I said, I really hate this advice that we should follow our passion. And he said, interesting. Why is that? And I said, I don't think it's that helpful, quite frankly, because you can love doing a thing and not know what to do about it. Now, let me say this, though. For people who know that they are passionate about this and they're going to do that, maybe they play the violin and that's all they want to do, and they're in the orchestra and they're going to do that for a living, that's great. Who would tell you not to do that? The problem is not everyone has that thing. Not everyone knows right away at an early age what they're supposed to do forever. Most people don't. That's why that TED Talk did so well. I mean, when I gave it, of course, no one was looking for me. I am not famous. I didn't have any books out. I still don't yet. But it wasn't like that talk was popular because I was popular. I'm no name, right, when I gave that talk. The reason that talk took off and why so many people have seen it is because the message rings true for them too. And so what I want you to do is not say, oh God, I guess I shouldn't have any passion or I shouldn't follow it. No. It's just that when someone says to you that you should follow your passion, well, that can be very scary if you don't know what it is. And then you think, and this is what happens, people think there's something wrong with them. They think, well, what's wrong with me that I don't know what to follow? Why don't I know? And that is the problem. That spiraling and self-doubt and fear that I'm supposed to know. Listen, I'm just a little bit older than you, just a little. And there are plenty of people my age and older who jokingly say, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. But what I want to relieve you of today, and my whole point of doing this, is I want to relieve you of the pressure that you should know what you're going to do when you grow up, or even 5-10 years from now, this pressure that you feel like you should know, or that there's something wrong with you, that you aren't sure what passion you want to follow. Because you could be passionate about a particular sport. You might be passionate about a kind of food. You might be passionate about a certain type of movie. You might be passionate about lots of things. Maybe you're a Renaissance person. You love to paint and write and draw and sculpt, and you think, oh, I have to pick one. There is no rule that says you have to pick a major for life. And that pressure can just be a little too much. And you know what? I'm telling you this from the other side here of whatever growing up is, telling you that I didn't know. And even if you had it planned, let's say you had everything planned, well, I'm going to do this and and then something happens. Case in point, since we're talking in 2020, I live in Manhattan. Do you know how many people make their living performing in theater and Broadway shows, and not just perform, but put those shows up and do the costumes and do the makeup and do all the things that it takes to put on a show? There are no more shows happening right now for a long time. I think they said something like maybe 2022, don't quote me on that, but all the people who came to New York to perform, to work on Broadway, that was what they were passionate about. Well, there's no shows. So then what? It's not that they shouldn't have followed it. It's not that they have a skill set now. That doesn't mean their lives are over. Better not be. But you see, if they pinned all of their identity only on Broadway and there's no Broadway, then there's a problem. But if you've been working on Broadway, now you have that skill set. So my point is, we never know. We really never know. So I'm going to walk you through some thoughts here, and we're going to have time for your questions. So if you've got questions, just write them down and say, okay, I'm going to ask her this later. The tricky thing is people always ask me, well, what should I do? What should I be? And I was like, the irony is, you think I can tell you? I can't tell you. Your mom can't tell you. Your friend can't tell you. Only you can tell you. So you've been asked this. You've been given it. It's facile, easy advice that doesn't really amount to much. Now, the question of whether we even need it to be a success or to be happy is something to think about. You know why? This lady right here, her name is Barbara Corcoran. She's one of the biggest names in the brokerage business. So Corcoran Realty, people buy houses and homes and buildings, whatever. Like, she's just a huge deal in the real estate world. She's also on Shark Tank, if you've ever seen her there. She's also in a million commercials. This woman is very successful. I saw her speak in person. I was there. I heard her with my own ears. And one of the other sharks from Shark Tank said to her, well, Barbara, you must be passionate about real estate. I mean, you're one of the biggest names in the business. You had to be passionate about it. Whoops. And she said, no, I'm not passionate about real estate. And they're like, wait, how is that possible? She said, I wasn't ever passionate about real estate. I did real estate, but I was passionate about salespeople. I was passionate about what I was doing. She was doing the work, and it happened to be in real estate because that's where she started. But if she had gotten started in cosmetics, we would all have Barbara Corcoran lipstick in our bags. It wouldn't have mattered what business. She is someone who was going to make something important. And by the way, if you want to have a great business, loving on your salespeople is a great way to do it. But she said it, and I was so thrilled. I was relieved, quite frankly. Now, I told you about this TED Talk. I told you why I think that so many people your age, especially, have reached out about it. That just what Barbara Corcoran said, like, you can actually decide to do things that have nothing to do with what you thought you should do. Take me, for example. I always loved words. I wanted to be a writer. I had no idea what that looked like. You know why? Because there is no one right way to be a writer. There is no one path. And I got afraid. I said, I guess I'd have to be in newspapers, but I don't want to work at a newspaper. But would I have to? What if I can't do it? I made up a whole story about what I was supposed to do. I was riddled with self-doubt. Oh God, I might come across here as very confident. I've talked about this many times, but I was just as insecure and fearful and unsure as any other human. And I thought, well, there's probably one right way to do it, and I'll probably do it wrong. And so I won't be able to be a writer. I mean, it's crazy what we tell ourselves. Now, that was many years ago. In the meantime, I have since built a life. I don't work in media full-time now, but for years I did. And I was an editor, and I got into magazine publishing when I was 30. I was already 30 when I got that first job in publishing specifically. And I didn't know how to do it, and I learned it. And then I, over the course of the next few years, realized what I liked doing and loved learning it. And inside of that magazine, which was called Whole Living, got to do lots of other stuff. I didn't work for all these companies. I worked for that Martha's magazine, but I got to do TV. You know why? I said, maybe I'll try that. I think that'd be fun. You only do things because they seem appealing, and that was fun. Now, today, I take that same skill set, and I have just used it in a different way. My ability to talk to people and get ideas out of them, and my love of writing comes through. But I work with all these different companies. Do you think I knew I was going to do that? No, I'll tell you what happened. I got laid off from the magazine because a few years in, they were like, magazines aren't making as much money, so we're going to let some people go. And I was one of those people. So I was like, I could have applied for another magazine job, but I was like, but I already did that. I don't want to do that again. I already did it for a bunch of years. So I said, well, what else could I do? I made it up. As I went. I liked doing that. Maybe that's not for you. Maybe you would have been like, no, I'm going to get another job. There's no one right way. But you can take a skill set and use it so many ways. There's no one right way. I'll give you a non-job example, okay? Football. I am the oldest of 3 girls. My father is from the Philippines and seems to have no particular interest in football. None of us did. So I grew up not really watching it or thinking anything about it. I went to a football school. I went to Boston College. They live and die around football. Didn't care. I certainly never cared to play it. I mean, that doesn't even make sense. Years and years later, I moved to New York and I met a group of friends through an improv acting class, just fun, right? And a group of them said, we're going to do touch football. We're going to join the touch football league as a team. Do you want to be on our team? And I said, no, I don't know how to play football. I have no interest. I'd be a liability. No. I was over 40 when I finally played football. And yeah, I had never thrown a football because no one ever thrown one to me. But I was over 40 when I joined my younger friends' football league. And I did not follow passion onto that field. I went kicking and screaming, scared, embarrassed. I said, I shouldn't be here. I mean, it's very low stakes, right? It's not like I was a paid athlete. But still, this was terrifying. You know, that whole imposter syndrome thing? Oh God, people are going to know I don't fit in. Oh, I didn't fit in. I couldn't tell who was offense or defense unless I saw my own team throw the ball. That's how I knew. And sometimes I got it wrong. So I didn't follow passion onto the field, but I found it there. These are my sweetheart team members who we haven't played in over a year now because some people moved away. But these were special times. And we went on to win the league championship a couple times. But that team camaraderie, that co-ed sports experience was something I'd never had. And I wasn't till I was over 40 till I had it. So I'm glad I did that, but I wouldn't have chosen it. Because what I learned there was what it meant to support people in a co-ed environment. I've been with all women all the time. I was a dancer, I was in publishing, but please, they're all girls everywhere. So this was really exciting. And I learned a lot as a person here that no doubt changed the way I have thought about myself and other teams. Here's the problem. We think it works like this. The muse visits you, whisper in your ear, you're meant to be this. And then we go, oh, I'm so inspired, I'm going to do that. And then you just float away on fairy wings to your dream. That's how it works. Nope, that is not how it works. So if you're waiting for that to happen, you're going to be waiting a long time, like this dog, waiting for someone to come and take it for a walk. That is not a strong position to be in. Because you sit there and wonder, I guess no one wants to take me for a walk. I guess I'm bad at walking. And then you'll tell yourself a whole story that isn't true. Another question people might ask you is, what inspires you? I get that question a lot, mainly because I'm in positions now to be interviewed. And people think like, oh, we're going to get at what inspires you. And then that can inspire us. But I say to them, you're not going to like my answer. You know why? Because I often don't feel like doing anything. And I know I'm not alone here. I know you feel similar to me sometimes, right? You just don't feel like doing anything. This idea that we're supposed to walk around inspired every second of the day, if you're doing the right thing, you're going to be inspired. Nope. You can be inspired by the work you do, even if you aren't inspired to do it. I was not inspired to play football, trust me. But when I was doing it and running, and when I caught a ball in the end zone and scored a touchdown, I've never even felt that kind of inspiration before. My God, it was amazing. I said, oh, this is what people get excited about. I was inspired by the fact that that happened. And then I was excited to do it again. This guy I just discovered, okay, embarrassing because he's apparently like the #1 guy who writes on Inc.com. But I was looking for a book about motivation because I said, someone's going to challenge this idea of motivation. And I'm telling you, I need to meet this guy because everything he's saying, I'm like, yes, yes, yes. His book is called The Motivation Myth. And what he says is, among many things, I just keep saving little things he says, speeches don't provide lasting motivation. Progress provides lasting motivation. So the irony here is, even though I want you to do well and I want you to challenge thinking and I want you to try new things, I can't make you do that no matter how good a job I do today, no matter how much you like me or maybe hate me. None of that matters because the speech, and I'm giving you a speech right now, the irony is this can't motivate you either. You might feel a little spike, but then after a couple of days, maybe not. How do you get it to stick? You decide you're going to do something, because when you start doing, then that gives you the fuel. I can't fuel your whole tank. I can only give you, I can only open a door in your mind for a moment. And if nothing happens, the door will close. Another thing he says is motivation is a result, not a precondition. So if you go, oh God, I'm not motivated to do anything, is something wrong with me? No. If you were motivated to do everything all the time, that would be not a smart way for the human body to be designed. Think about it. We have a limited amount of energy and attention. Why would the body be designed to spend it all before noon? I'm just going to do everything. You'd be so tired, you actually wouldn't be able to feed yourself. You know what I mean? So know that it's normal to feel, I don't feel like doing anything today. First of all, it's summer. It's a time to feel lazy, right? Sometimes I'm like, I just want to lay here. It's okay. If you want to feel motivated, you must act, because the motivation comes as a result. So ask yourself, where have you given yourself a chance to experience progress? Think about a time you made something. Maybe you're making food or a project, arts and crafts project, or maybe you're doing some high-tech wiring of some kind of project that you were into, or whatever it was that you were doing. Maybe an art project, who knows what you were up to. When you start going on it, then you get kind of obsessed with it. That sense of flow, that progress is motivating. When's the last time you gave yourself a chance to experience it? So let's think about this for a second. What do we really want in our lives? These are some of those things: meaning, value, connection, enjoyment, fulfillment, probably other things too. But if we were to just have these, if I could promise you these, it'd be a pretty great life. Now, I can't promise you that, but this is not adherent to a specific school or a thought or a job or a person. This doesn't depend on the one person you marry or the one place you go to school. Those are big decisions. If you decide to go to school and you decide to get married, which, by the way, not everyone does, these big choices, you can have all of these things regardless of which thing you choose. But that's on you to create. We put so much burden on a single decision. It's going to make my life. Yeah, some decisions do alter your life, but you can do these things. What we want is a life that matters. That's what we want. That's above everything what we want most. And that can happen so many ways. The problem is that the search for passion, when we say to ourselves, I need to find my passion first, it's just another way of hiding. Because we go, well, I'm going to wait. We just hide. I'm going to wait to see. Maybe I'll be passionate about that and I'll follow that later. Or maybe someone will tell me, or I don't know, I'm just going to wait here till someone tells me. No one's going to tell you. Because, people give you advice. If you should do this, you should do that. How much does that motivate you? Maybe a little, but probably not for long. Because you'll be like, I'm doing it because they want me to do it. You're only going to really stick with what you want to do. Right? Now, I want to take you through this thing. This is kind of fascinating to me, and I think that it's worth thinking about for a moment. It comes from Amy Wisniewski's work at the Yale School of Management. It was a study she did, and she was trying to determine the differences here in how people describe themselves as having a job, a career, or a calling. And even just the way she and her team defined it was very eye-opening to me. A job is work as a means to an end, paycheck. Supports your life outside of work. When you're young, you have lots of jobs, right? Maybe you had a job at an ice cream shop, or I worked at the town pool for a while during the summers. It's just a job. You get paid to do it so you can do other things. I actually really liked the job at the pool. It's not a career, but I really liked it. It was a fun job. Some jobs are fun, some jobs aren't fun, but you have to do them, right, for money. Career is not that different from job. The difference is the work here is a path to upward mobility and achievement and status. So if someone's career-minded, they're looking ahead 5 jobs. I want this job, then I'm going to get that job, then I'm going to get that job. That's very corporate ladder thinking. Maybe that appeals to you. It never really appealed to me. I mean, I love achievement and earning, whatever, but I didn't really have personally desire to stay in or go back into corporate in that way. Maybe you will want that. Maybe that'll be fun for a while until it isn't. But career is usually trading jobs upward. But calling is defined by work that is integral to your identity and self-expression. It's meaningful and satisfying. Now, maybe you know already you feel called to do a thing. You'd be in the minority. You'd be one of the few people who's like, oh, I'm called to do this. And by the way, how many people were called to be Broadway actors? Great, I'm glad they were called. Guess what? Broadway's not calling right now. So maybe they have a calling to be performers, or maybe they'd be great in sales. They got to find a way to pay their bills and to have a living. But the way they describe what they do might change, right? Your calling is not a job title. No one's called to be a VP of X corporation, but you can have a calling inside of it, and that calling is yours. It can go where you go. Now, here's the thing. Okay, so by the way, here's some of the perks of, you can't just go, I'm going to see my work as a calling so that I get these perks. But people who just see their work as a calling, they tend to report higher life and job satisfaction. They tend to rank work satisfaction higher. It doesn't mean they love the job every day, but they see it as part of who they are and what they do, even the bad stuff. They even miss fewer days of work. Is it about money or rank? No. You know how we know this? Because, this is a small study, and they took us even smaller subset of that study of people who all had the same job. They were college administrators. So they took a whole bunch of people who were worked in college administration. So it's an admin job. People of all ages, different, men, women, different stuff. Same job though. Now you might go, well, that's just a job. You might just do that while you're in school, or that's a career. Maybe they want to work in the school at a higher level. Maybe it's a calling. It doesn't actually depend on the title though. The satisfaction with life and work, according to the researchers, what they found was how an employee sees his or her work. How you see it. Now you can't just decide you're going to see it that way, but how they saw it mattered. The people who complain about every job their whole life, it's not the job's fault, right? It's kind of like, well, did you pick things you complain about? We all complain about stuff, but could you find something that's you inside of a job, whether you want to stay there or not? Now, I want to show you one detail on this chart, which comes from the whole study that they did. I don't understand this stuff any more than you do, but there's one thing on here I want you to look at. The number of years someone was on the job. Now, people who identified my job as a college administrator, it's a job. They were there about 4-ish years. People saw it as a career, 6-ish years on average. People saw it a calling, were there longer. Now you might think, well, they saw it as a calling, so they stayed. We didn't say that was the causal relationship. How do we know that someone started to see it as their calling the longer they were there? Because they started to feel like a master of what they do. You could work in that job for 6 months and hate it and leave. You could be there for 10 years. And you don't go, well, I'm a college administrator. I identify as a college administrator. No. Ask Peg, who's been working at such and such college as an administrator for 20 years. If you ask her what she does she go, oh, I file papers? No. She says, this office couldn't run without me. I'm a resourceful person. I'm dependable. People come to me. This is what I'm meant to do. I love that view because it tells me that it doesn't matter how much you get paid. There are plenty of people who make a lot of money who are miserable and they hate the job. So it's not that you earn a calling through paycheck. You're feeling around for what you love about what you do and what it brings out in you. So ask yourself, what do you do so well that it feels like second nature? Now, you're early in your lives and careers, so maybe something feels natural. Maybe 10 years from now, something else will feel natural to you. But what would it be fun to master? And do you give yourself a chance to master it? Because it would be like if I just read the first 5 pages of 10 books and said, I don't like any of these books. But if I took one and spent the evening and I read 100 pages, then maybe I have a real idea. We don't really give ourselves the time to figure out what we want. And I'm telling you, you can use time to your advantage that way. There is no wasted time. So how do we create meaning? Well, we create it Creativity. Let me tell you what creativity is not. It is not a rare gift that only 5 people on this call have. It's not a static trait. It's not someone else's job. Brené Brown, who of course of the very, very famous TED Talk and many books, she says there's no such thing as creative people and non-creative people. There are only people who use their creativity and people who don't. My mother always like, oh, I'm not creative. My mother's incredibly creative thinker, creative gift giver. She loves to label herself as not creative. It gets on my nerves, but then again, she's my mom. So a lot of things don't get on my nerves about my mom. I love her, but you know how it is. The point is, creativity is wired into you as a human. It's not something you major in. So lest you think, well, I'm in this. I've had people go, well, I worked with a man who was like, well, I'm an engineer, so I'm not really. I'm like, yeah, engineers are creative. They're artists. They're artists that apply art to life. They make things work. The failure is the failure to see the art in what you do, and it matters. There are a few dangerous myths about creativity too, that it happens alone, that you're creative on your own in a room by yourself, that you don't need anyone else, which is not true, that you need to be fixed to be better, and they're either good or you're not good. You're talented or you're not talented. You have promise or you don't have promise. Please, please get rid of this idea. It's binary. It is limiting. If my whole life of what I'm going to do is an on-off switch, whether I'm good or not, I guess I'll quit while I'm ahead. I've never been able to get down with that because then there's no room for me. It's either pass, fail. It's not helpful. Everything is a spectrum. So I want to talk about criticism for a minute because this is going to feature into our work tomorrow. So I'm coming back tomorrow and we're going to be applying what I'm telling you about right now. And you're actually going to be doing the work. We're going to be doing it together. But let me tell you about criticism. We've all been criticized, right? The reason why the criticism sticks in our brains is because our brains have a natural bias toward the negative. It keeps you from doing things that'll hurt yourself. But it also means that we think about negative things more. So it just sticks to your head, can't get rid of it. We've also been taught to believe that criticism is good for us. Now, some great feedback might change your life. Of course, and some of it has. But the idea that you should be told you're bad and be fixed takes away your own power, really. And you've also been taught that you have to compete with instead of, collaborate with, cultivate things with. You've been told that competing is the only way to go. And that's a scarcity mindset. So that's not always helpful, really. Criticism shuts down your creativity too, right? You think not only are you less likely to come up with an idea if someone's criticizing you, because your brain goes into fight or flight, but you'll also be less likely to share any ideas. So you won't come up with them and you won't share them. And how do you change your life that way? Or anyone else's? You can't. One thing that I hope to take away from today is that there is no one straight path to excellence. There is no bus to your passion and you didn't just miss it. There is only yours. And your job now is to read and talk to people and do things and explore, just like you're doing here today. Just apply that thought, that part of your brain that's creative and thoughtful and is hungry for information, to watch shows, to listen to music, to tune into all that. Be curious about your own learning. First of all, that is not only what makes for a fun life, but that is the person that other people want to hire. Someone who's curious, someone who's open, someone who really wants to think about things. Do you know how hard it is to find someone who actually thinks for themselves? Harder than you would think. We think that it's an amazing race. We got to figure it out on the map. We got to get to the one place where everyone's hanging out. All the very rich and famous people are there. We need to get there. That is not how this works. There are as many points on the map of success as there are people on this call, people in your town, people on the planet. Do they all get there? No. Do they all try? No. Are they inspired? Oh, God, no. Tomorrow, you're going to learn more about what's called the gateless method. It's something I was trained in. I didn't make it up. There's only maybe 60 teachers in the whole world. And the reason I want to teach it to you is because it is incredibly freeing. It opens up the mind and frees you temporarily from that grip of the critic that tells you, you should be doing this, and why aren't you doing this, and you don't know what you're going to do with your life, blah. That is not helpful. The gateless method, it's an approach to work, to any kind of work, that silences the critical mind, or at least quiets it, turns down the volume a bit so that you can access that creativity and potential. When you beat that door shut saying, you're stupid, be quiet, stay in there, don't come out. Well, you wonder why you don't have any ideas. You wonder why you're not sure what to do. You need to coax that stuff out. What this method does is helps retrain the brain to associate creating and sharing with ease, pleasure, and reward, when normally it triggers sense of fear, panic, and total shutdown. So that's what we're going to do. This method was originally created in the context of working with writers. The woman who invented it, Suzanne Kingsbury, was working with writers, and she realized they got blocked. Even writers get blocked. People who are not writers get blocked. So this method, the way we approach it, is designed to quiet that so you can actually hear your best ideas. And we write and we listen. And you're going to do both. We learn to listen differently. We listen for what's working, not for what isn't working. And it actually can change how you feel about your own work. Now, I don't want to get into too much of the rules of that right now. But what I do want to add here before we go to questions is that I have a free guide. If you like this idea and you're like, well, I need to hear more about this. It's just a free guide in an audiobook, and you can find it at terrisentme.com. If you put in your information, and it'll get zipped to you automatically. And then you'll have, you can listen to it every month. The audiobook will take you maybe 20 minutes, and we're going to be doing this tomorrow. But you see that is what this is about, is taking our minds away from the criticism, the why don't I know, and da-da-da-da, and looking at it as service to others, as finding where my passion meets others' needs, which is what I talk about in the TED Talk. That here's the example I've used. Imagine that you made eggs in the morning, and someone was like, oh my gosh, these are the best eggs I've ever had. Oh, really? I always make eggs that way. Oh my gosh, these eggs are amazing. I need some people to try these eggs of yours. Okay. So she brings over her friends next time, and they're like, these are the most amazing eggs I've ever had. What are you doing? I don't know. I do this. Maybe that's why. Sooner or later, they say, we need more and more of these eggs. We're going to pay you for these eggs. We need you to be interviewed for an article on eggs. Like, all of a sudden, these eggs take off. You might not have been passionate about eggs before. You just made them to eat. But when you discover that other people want those eggs and need those eggs, you're going to be really excited about those eggs. That's the magic of passion, because it ignites when you realize that the thing you can do capably well, it meets a need. It feels good. That meaning comes from giving something that matters to someone else. That is how your life starts to matter. So I'm going to leave it there, because I want to be able to get to questions and to invite you all to come back tomorrow, because we're going to have you do this. And we're starting right at the top of the hour. I'm going to tell you a little bit how it works, what are the rules, how we play this game, and then you're actually going to do some exploring of that passion on the page tomorrow. But in the meantime, what kind of questions can I answer for you?
Okay, thank you for that. It's a very inspirational message, and I think it's really important for the kids these days to listen to that and know that they don't have to settle for something, but to try and take chances, because they don't know exactly what they will have a true passion in unless they have an open mind and try for things. So I think that was a very motivational speech, and I think everyone can gain a lot from that speech today. For now, we're going to open it up for some Q&A. So if you have a question, just raise your hand. Make sure you unmute yourself so we can hear you talk, and feel free to ask Terri anything you want to ask her.
Ask me anything.
So we'll start with Sharon.
Sharon, hi. Hi, Sharon.
Unmute.
We can't hear her yet. Can you unmute her?
Is it not working?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there you go.
Well, one of the questions I had was, some of the things that you were talking about, such as like some of these ideas that we have, or the way that we're raised to think, and how, like, for me, I'm currently like a college student. I went in like undecided in my major, and now that I'm actually like in college, I'm an art history major, And so then oftentimes like I find myself always comparing to other people.
Oh,
And it's kind of very difficult because I understand also what you're saying, but then on like one side of me, it's like, how am I supposed to change my conceptions or the thoughts that I have towards like a future in, what I want to study and what I want to do when that kind of stuff has been so ingrained into
well,
the.
wait a minute, hang on, Sharon. What's ingrained? Because when you say I'm comparing to other people, I don't know what that means. Be real specific. Is it that someone says, Sharon, that's stupid, don't major in that? It's like, where is the comparison coming?
People do say that, but it's kind of also
Don't hang out with those people.
um, it's
What is the pressure? You feel that squeeze. I can hear it in your voice that you feel that squeeze of pressure. Where do you think that's coming from?
seeing a lot of my classmates or a lot of my professors on a path that seems like they've done so much more than me. And of course, like professors, that's totally understandable.
Of course.
But especially like my classmates or people that, are around my age, whether it's the resources that they have or the connections, I feel like a lot of times maybe I'm disadvantaged in the resources that I have or the connections that I'm able to make, whether it's like monetary or just like being able to physically go places and try to get those connections and network like that. And so it's kind of like, how am I supposed to, or how can I move forward when I feel like a lot of these things are just like always kind of like pulling me backwards? Does that make sense?
Of course, because every single person on this call and every person in the world feels it. There's always going to be someone who has more resources than you. They'll have more money. They'll have friends in high places. Always. If we wait for that to go away, then there's no room to live. So this idea that everyone's doing more than you, we all think it is an illusion and it is a waste of your time to think about. The question is, do you like the work that you're doing? All that matters when we're thinking about what we're going to move forward with is not, does someone else have something else I can't have? Because you're never going to have their life and you don't want their life. You're going to do what Sharon does after she majors in this and studies this. If you were saying, I look at my professors, I don't even want to do what they're doing, I don't even like this topic, well, that's a bigger question. But is there something, if you had to put your finger on it, what do you love about art history? Regardless of who cares, who else is doing what else?
Well, it's taught me to see differently, not only just works of art or, like pieces of art, but it reflects the way people think and, the culture of society and how everyone, like in the present, we're all affected by what has gone on in the past and how everything is building off of each other. And so not only does it change the way that I interpret like a specific piece of art or something, but as I'm just like walking out on the street or, meeting
Yes.
them. And I think that even though it's like art, a lot of people are like, oh, why would you study that? But it's taught me to like be able to think very broadly about a lot of things and be able to like analyze and pick things apart.
Yes. Sharon, this is something that doesn't get taught enough and they can't make people do it. But yeah, there's a lot of people who are studying accounting and I have friends I roomed with in college who went on to have great careers in accounting. But if you ask my friend who's in accounting, she's now a partner at a firm. So she's as high as you can go, right? And she says, oh my God, I don't think of myself as an accountant. She's like, I am spending all the time working with our younger accountants and mentoring them and doing this and doing this. There's a lot of what she did in the job before and there's what she does now. But it's her. She likes to feel that it's her in that job. I can tell you this right now. You are way ahead of most people who do not know how to compare two things. They don't know how to think critically about what this means, what that means. Someone who studies art history, not everyone will, but later on, you might be doing something you have no idea. And someone will go, what did you major in? Sharon? I go, art history. Isn't that interesting? It doesn't matter. But what it does matter is that you're taking what you're learning and learning how to apply it. Because if you can look at a work of art or anything and look at it and study it and the nuances and why it works, why it doesn't work, you can apply that to anything. So you don't have to be the most artiest, historyist person and with the top job. You're not gunning for that. When you're in the running for that, then you find out. But all you have to do is go watch Hamilton and realize that you can start from absolutely nothing. It is drive, it is purpose. Who do you want to help with that skill? Forget everyone else. because there's always going to be people who had it, oh, they got hooked up. You know how many people in Hollywood are like, oh, I didn't have Ryan Gosling's agent, so I didn't get to be Ryan Gosling. Nah, that gets to be old. It's not helpful, right? So use what you have, knowing that what you're learning here is vital for critical thinking in the world, and people are going to want someone who can look critically at a thing, art or anything, and be able to talk thoughtfully about what it means. So let that sit. Let's go to, I see a question here in the chat here. How do you deal with imposter syndrome and preventing yourself from pigeonholing yourself? First of all, none of you should be pigeonholed. I wasn't pigeonholed at 30, at 40. So there's no pigeonholing. Don't worry that by committing to one thing, you're pigeonholed for life. You do this for a while. I played softball when I was in like 8th grade. Was I worried about being pigeonholed as a softball player? Please, definitely not. Then I was an English major. I worked at that pool and I was the grilled cheese maker where I was pigeonholed. Get rid of this idea of pigeonholing. You commit to things to learn the skill and you move on and you'll do whatever the heck you want. As for imposter syndrome, guess who has it? Only smart people. Only smart, achieved people have imposter syndrome. You know who doesn't have imposter syndrome? I'd like to say the word, but I don't want to curse on this nice webinar. But jerks have no imposter syndrome. You know who has no imposter syndrome? People who think they know everything and are horrible to be around and actually never learned anything because they think they know everything. It is a curse that you will never hit a day when you'll go, oh, I don't have imposter syndrome anymore. You might look at me and go, well, she's this, she's done that. Look at the bio. Please, I have imposter syndrome all the time. If you want to succeed, that shadow doesn't go away. It's just that you put it in the back seat and you go, I know, I hear you. I know you're doubting it, but you know what? I don't have time to pay attention to you syndrome because I'm busy doing the work. I keep myself very busy doing the work, whatever I'm doing. So I'm so involved in the work and how it serves the other person. There's no room for that syndrome. I just crowd it out. So that's how I deal with it. I don't know if that will be helpful. There are people without a job, Maria says, because of pandemic, like Broadway theater people. What is your advice for them? Also, students have to study online. What activities would be good for students these days? I feel really, really bad for students who don't get, and for you now, right, who don't get the in-person thing. Now, people without a job, that's a lot of people. If I thought I had advice for all of the millions of people who are unemployed, that would make me a real jackass. Because, well, how would I know, right? Like, there's a reason why, I think it was it Ivanka Trump who kind of very tone-deafly said, well, they should look into other careers. Guess what? I understand my privilege, and I have been privileged, and I live a very privileged life. I have access to things, right, that other people might not. Someone who was working really hard at a job and is trained to do that one job and now doesn't have that job. How arrogant of me to say, well, you should just expand your skill set and da-da-da-da. Like, I don't know. And it's horrible, but also motivationally, it would fall on deaf ears. You can do anything. That, my friends, has to be addressed at the larger level. And we need to vote the right people into office who will make policy changes so that people are not slipping through cracks. So any advice I would give would feel really lame and actually extra privileged, because we don't have policies set in place to take advantage of our own citizens, at least here in this country. And it is an embarrassment to all of us. I think
so,
that, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Terry. So I know you guys have lots of questions for her, but in order to ask her, you have to come back tomorrow to the next session. So thank you so much for that. And it's not over. She will be back tomorrow for part 2 of her session. So don't forget to bring your pencil and paper with you tomorrow when she comes back. We'll be able to share one more keynote speaker series with the very special guest, Terri Trespicio. Thank you so much for your time, Terri. And please, everyone, give her another big IYF hand.
Thank you.
My name is Terri Trespicio, and I'm a speaker, writer, and brand advisor.
Oh my God, look at this party. Are you kidding me?